I'm a human being. I've made mistakes. That's the real me.
Millions believed he could heal the sick, cure disease, even speak for God. But behind the lights, the stage, and the shouting crowds, something didn't add up. People who were declared healed were still sick. Some got worse. Others died believing they were cured.
The type of results that she wanted, and when it came down to the end, she was crushed.
And the money? It never stopped flowing. For decades, Benny Hinn stood at the center of it all, one of the most powerful religious figures in the world. His crusades filled stadiums. His words reached millions across continents. To his followers, he wasn't just a preacher. He was a channel of divine power. But here's where things begin to break. Because when you look closer, past the music, the emotion, the claims of miracles, you start to see a pattern. A pattern that raises one uncomfortable question. What if the miracles weren't real? What if the prophecies weren't from God? And what if the people who trusted him the most were the ones who paid the highest price? This isn't just a story about faith. It's a story about influence, power, and belief pushed to its limits. Because the deeper you go into this world, the harder it becomes to tell where truth ends and illusion begins. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Before the crowds, before the stage, there was a quiet beginning. Benny Hinn was born in Israel and later moved to Canada as a teenager. He wasn't famous, he wasn't powerful. In fact, by his own story, he struggled with a stutter. Then something changed. In 1972, he said he gave his life to Christ. Not long after, he attended a healing service led by Catherine Kuhlman, a woman known for dramatic miracle claims. That moment would shape everything. He watched how she moved, how she spoke, how people reacted. And within a year, he was preaching. He claimed his stutter had suddenly disappeared. His confidence grew fast, and soon doors began to open. By the early 1980s, he had founded a church in Orlando, Florida. From there, his ministry began to spread. But here's what's easy to miss. This wasn't just about preaching. It was about presentation, the stage, the music, the expectation of miracles. People didn't just come to listen. They came hoping their lives would change instantly. And that hope would become the foundation of everything that followed. Because once people believe miracles are possible, they stop asking questions. Then came the explosion. By the 1990s, Benny Hinn wasn't just a pastor, he was a global phenomenon. His miracle crusades filled massive arenas. In some countries, entire cities turned out to see him. One event in India reportedly drew millions. On stage, the scenes were dramatic. People in wheelchairs stood up. The sick claimed instant healing. Crowds wept, shouted, and fell to the ground. And through television, it reached even further. His program, This Is Your Day, broadcasted these moments to homes around the world. To many, it looked undeniable. But there was something else happening behind the scenes. Money. Donations poured in from viewers and attendees, many of them desperate. They were told that giving was an act of faith, that sowing money would bring blessings in return. This message, often called the prosperity gospel, spread quickly, and so did his lifestyle. Reports began to surface of luxury travel, expensive hotels, and private jets. But at the height of his power, few questioned it. Because when millions believe you are chosen by God, criticism sounds like doubt. And doubt is something people are taught to avoid. But eventually, the cracks began to show. It started with a simple idea. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Some viewers began asking questions. Doctors started looking into the healings. Journalists began investigating the claims. And what they found didn't match the stage. People who said they were healed weren't. Some conditions never changed. Others came back. In some cases, there was no medical proof at all. Still, the shows continued. The crowds kept coming. But now, a new voice entered the story. An insider. Benny Hinn, his own nephew, would later speak out. He described a world behind the curtain, a system where appearances mattered more than truth. And that changed everything, because it wasn't just critics anymore. It was someone who had seen it from the inside. And once that door opened, more questions followed. How were these healings verified? Who checked the claims? And why did no one seem to have real proof? The answers were not what people expected. The deeper investigators looked, the more troubling the stories became. There were individuals declared healed on stage who later admitted nothing had changed. Some said they felt caught in the moment, swept up by the energy of the crowd. Others said they truly believed they were healed until reality returned. One case involved people said to be cured of deafness. Independent tests later showed no change. Another involved someone told they were healed of a serious illness, only to die weeks later. And then there were the prophecies, predictions about world events, diseases disappearing, major changes that never happened. Each one raised the same question. If these messages were from God, why were they wrong? Even more concerning, Benny Hinn himself admitted he did not always verify healings medically before sharing them publicly. That meant millions were watching claims with no proof behind them. And yet, the belief continued. Because once someone invests emotionally, it becomes very hard to step back, especially when hope is involved. Then came wider scrutiny. In the United States, televangelists, including Benny Hinn, came under review by the Senate Finance Committee. The concern? How donation money was being used. While no charges were filed, the investigation raised serious questions about transparency and spending. At the same time, reports continued to highlight a gap. On one side, followers giving what little they had, sometimes out of desperation. On the other, a ministry operating with significant wealth. And still, the message remained the same. Give and you will receive. Even years later, after public criticism, that message didn't fully disappear. In 2019, Hinn adhered to distance himself from extreme prosperity teaching. He called some practices wrong, but critics noticed something important. The language softened, but the system stayed. Requests for donations continued. Promises of blessing remained. And that raised a new question. Was this real change or just adjustment under pressure? Because if nothing truly changed, then the pattern wasn't broken. It was just hidden better. When you step back and look at everything together, a pattern forms. Not one mistake, not one failed claim. A pattern. Repeated healings without proof. Repeated prophecies that didn't happen. Repeated calls for money tied to faith. And that pattern carries weight. Because in many belief systems, even one false prophecy is serious. Yet here there were many. Still, millions continued to follow. Why? Because belief is powerful. When someone is sick, desperate, or struggling, hope can override logic. And that's where the moral question begins. If people are giving money they can't afford, believing they will be healed, and those promises don't come true, what responsibility does the person making those claims carry? This is where the issue moves beyond facts. It becomes about right and wrong, truth and deception. Because if the message is not true, then the impact is not just financial, it's personal, it's emotional, and for some, it's life-changing in the worst way. So what really happened? Did Benny Hinn fall, or did the world simply start paying closer attention? Because here's the reality. He never fully disappeared. He still has followers. He still preaches. which means the story isn't over. And that's what makes it more unsettling. Because despite decades of criticism, investigations, and unanswered questions, the influence remains. The crowds may be smaller, the spotlight may not be as bright, but the system still exists, and so does the belief. Which leaves one final question. If millions were convinced once, could it happen again? Or worse, has it never really stopped? Because the most dangerous part of the story isn't just what happened in the past, it's what people are still willing to believe today.